Technology is something we all know is ever changing, and sometimes it feels like you just get caught up and then it changes again. That's why having people like my guest Caroline today on your team can help you save lots of headaches while staying on top of your game. What I love the best about her and her company is that she isn't just about taking your money. It's more about what you do, what you stand for, but most of all, how profitable she can make you. That's what matters the most to her. So she doesn't take just anybody. She spoke to us today about things to pay attention to, tips that you can use to start seeing more profit, and as well shared some insight into her interesting journey so far in life. So let's dive in.
Welcome to Fox Talks Business Podcast with your host, Tanya Fox. Tanya has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, owning retail, service, and franchise. She holds no punches and is never afraid to talk about the nitty-gritty. Together, you'll explore the good, the bad, and the motivational of business life, turning obstacles into opportunities and failures into successes. So grab your favorite drink and let's have some fun. Here's your host, speaker, crafter, and collaborator, Tanya Fox.
So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Caroline. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tanya.
So tell us a little bit about your history, sort of where you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I'll only go back 20 years, but I was living in Boston in 1999. Dell recruited me to come down and help run their consumer marketing division. So people were buying their first computers. Smartphones didn't exist. Apple had, tiny single-digit market share in everything. And so I ran that for a few years, then went on to run a couple different divisions in Dell. And then I went to go run a global market research firm. So that was great, focused on the display industry. And then I decided to stop doing that and do consulting when I had my first son. It's very hard to spend some time in Tokyo when you've got a newborn. So I consulted for 4 or 5 years, and then went back to work for a mom and baby company in 2014. And they were a small company, and I was focused on their Amazon and their e-commerce at the time. So this was 6 years ago. Did that for about a year. One of the founders, who was no longer active in the company, said, "You should do this for more companies." So fast forward a month later, founded ROI Swift, the agency, and now we really focus on helping the brands in the 3 to 30 million space grow on Facebook advertising, Google advertising, and Amazon.
That's what a great story, like heading up to that point. But I think that this is an important conversation to have because it's all avenues that change so quickly. It feels like every day you're looking and there's something new, and it can be really hard to go through. So tell us a little bit about what the company does. So say someone is interested, how do you guys set yourself apart and what you can do for a company?
Great question, Tanya. So what we like to do is we only like to take on brands where we can be successful. So we will typically do a complimentary audit to see if we can help. So many folks have worked with agencies and the agency doesn't do a good job or can't help them, but takes their money anyways. And so we never want to be in that position. As you know, and you've worked with agencies, we've all worked with agencies, and it comes down to 2 things, right? Results and relationships. And if both of those things aren't there, you're not going to be successful. So the first thing we do is somebody says, "Oh, I need help with my Amazon business." Maybe they're doing $30,000 a month or something on there. So we'll audit and we'll look at, are their listings good? Is their advertising good? Is their back end set up correctly? Are they taking advantage of all the features like B2B? Amazon has millions of Amazon businesses that are business owners that people don't even see your listings if you don't just check this one little box. So we'll do an audit and just make sure that we can help. And if we can't help, we'll tell them that. We've done that with a great brand called Cricket Shirts. So they make these great men's polo shirts. They came to us. We audited. This was a Facebook audit. we audited their advertising. They were doing everything correctly except for two things. And so we told them that. We told them, don't hire us. So that's, I think, one of the differentiators and how we work together with brands is just to know that we can be successful.
And I think that that's a key thing for a lot of people, because I agree with what you said, is that oftentimes you come up across, especially when you're, trying to build your brand, and companies that'll go, yeah, sure. And they just kind of take everybody, but you need somebody who really can take you to that next level and is going to work on that with you.
Right. And that's what we're passionate about. Like, we have a saying, if Nike wanted to work with us, we would say no. We don't want to work with the Nikes of the world. I've worked at Dell, I've worked at a Fortune 50 company, but we're passionate about is helping these smaller brands that really can't afford that expert help. And so we don't think that your size should dictate whether or not you can get good help.
Yeah. And I love that. I think that's great. And I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who that's a breath of fresh air to them. So when people are looking at doing this, is there something that you kind of see that comes across that businesses are sort of making a mistake at, or maybe unaware of, that you can give a tip to those that are listening today to maybe check? Are you doing this one thing that you commonly see?
Yes. So, with Amazon in particular, as you know, any direct to consumer, whether it's your website or Amazon's website, comes down to two things. I hate to oversimplify it, but this is the oversimplification is it comes down to how much traffic do you have and how many of those people are buying, right? Same thing with your website. How many sessions, what's your conversion rate? For Amazon, it's the same thing. They have a sessions metric and a conversion rate metric. So one of the things that I would encourage people to do is know your numbers. So there's probably three numbers that you should know for Amazon. First of all, you should know your profitability. You would be amazed, Tanya, how many people come to us and we say, okay, well, what are your COGS? What are your fees? How much are you making? And folks have come to us and they haven't been profitable. I was like, why are you wasting your time doing something that's not making you any money? So
Right.
Know your numbers, right? It's really hard to make money on less than $20 products on Amazon. We prefer folks to bundle things, get them up over that at least $20 price point to take advantage of, your fees can be up to 60% on a $12 item versus on a $25 or $30 item, your fees as a percent of total could be as low as 35% or 30%. So know your numbers. That's the first number to know, is know your profitability per product. The second number to know is know your sessions and know your conversion. To know how to improve, you have to know what's wrong. Are there not enough people coming to your site, or are there plenty of people coming but nobody's buying? So those are very different problems. And so we have a strategy to attack both of those. We like to see for Amazon about a 15% conversion rate minimum. I mean, some of our clients convert at 90% on their pages, but if it's below 15, we go figure out what's wrong with the listing. Why is nobody buying? What's confusing? Or maybe you're sending bad advertising traffic from Amazon to that listing. So we'll pinpoint what exactly is wrong with your conversion rate.
And I think that that's one thing that people struggle with a lot, because we hear that all of the time, right? We're inundated with, you just got to get people, the more people that see you and get out there. And then, but people aren't, so they go, well, I have all of these people who follow me and I have all of these numbers, but they're not active. They're not doing anything. So I think, like you said, really knowing what those conversion rates, because you can have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can have hundreds of thousands of people that have liked or followed your page, but if that conversion rate isn't there, they're kind of useless.
Exactly. We Gabe Hernandez heads up our paid social team. So he came from 3 years at Facebook, and he is very famous around our office for saying, followers is a vanity metric, engagement is a sanity metric. So you really don't want to focus on your followers. You want to focus on what's your engagement rate, So if you have 10,000 followers and you have less than 100 people engaging on each of your posts, then those aren't really quality followers, right?
Yeah. And I think that that's, for all of our listeners, I think that that is something that should be exciting to them, because it means that you don't necessarily need those huge numbers, because just because you have all these followers, have you seen it in your experience where people, don't have those huge numbers that we see, but are being really profitable because they have those higher conversion rates.
Definitely, definitely. We see people like that have less than 25,000 followers on Instagram, and they're an $80 million business.
Right. Yeah. So it really is about knowing those numbers and understanding them.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about Facebook and Instagram, because those, like, I hear a lot of questions and stuff on that, and people are confused about paid ads and how that all works. Can you give us some tips on ways that people can maybe look differently at that?
Sure. So one of the things that we found with a bunch of our clients, that even ones that have come over recently, we'll do an audit and we'll see that they're getting a 1 return on ad spend, or ROAS, right? So for every dollar they put in, they're only getting $1 back. Well, you're not going to be profitable.
Right.
That is for, folks that have high repeat. Sometimes a 1 ROAS is okay, right? You want to pay $20 to acquire that customer who has a lifetime value of maybe $300 or $400. That's a great customer acquisition cost. So that's the other thing to know what your repeat purchase rate is for your direct to consumer site. Know what your average lifetime value is. So those are some good metrics to know as well. But what we see is that, and I even had this conversation yesterday with this great chimichurri brand, like delicious, beautiful packaging, beautiful branding. They were running, 20 different campaigns. And the problem we see is that sometimes people try to get overcomplicated, and I hate to say keep it simple, but really focus on one prospecting campaign, people who are new to your brand. Focus on one middle of funnel campaign, which are people who have engaged with you, or people that have responded to your posts or like your page. And then the bottom of the funnel are those people who went to a product page but didn't purchase, right? So those are your true retargeting. And what we see a lot of time with prospecting is somebody will have like a $10 a day budget, and they'll have these massive audiences of like 10 million people. Well, Facebook's algorithm is never going to learn who are the right of those 10,000 or 10 million people if you just don't give it enough budget, or if you just give it too many factors. So a lot of times we'll do a simple thing, and straight off the bat, the easiest thing to do if you have a customer base and you're a direct to consumer brand is just go ahead and build a 1% lookalike off of your customers. If you're on Shopify, we prefer Shopify, awesome Canadian company. I'd say 90% of our clients are on Shopify, and great integration with Facebook. So, build a lookalike off of those customers that look just like your customers, and that'll be a good prospecting audience. And then just put in there and test a couple of different creatives. Sometimes we'll see person just do one ad. And as you know, there's 3 factors that go into the success of any advertising campaign. And that is who you're talking to, your audience, right? So make sure you're talking to the right people, what you're putting in front of them, like what the offer is, like if you only like blue shirts and, you're never going to buy a gray shirt for me, make sure you're putting the right thing in front of the right person.
Right.
And then the last thing is creative. So from my days at direct mail with Dell, we used to mail out 200 million catalogs, and it was all about who gets which catalog, which people get catalogs. And then the creative was like, okay, what does it look like? What offer, what pictures did this person get versus their neighbor? But that's the same thing. You want to try a couple of different creatives. So what we see is sometimes people try to boil the ocean when just stick to one prospecting campaign and maybe try a couple different audiences in there, and just keep it clean.
Yeah. And I think that, a lot of businesses really struggle with finding exactly who that target market is, because we hear that. Who's your target market? Find your, your ideal consumer. And they're like, I don't know. My ideal consumer is just somebody who will give me money. So are there any tips that you can give? Like, I know you had said to look at customers you already have, but what particular things should they be looking for when they're trying to build that?
Oh, good question. So I did this project when I was consulting, when my kids were small, I just did consulting. I didn't work full time, although it was like working full time because you're full time mom and consulting. So it's sort of like having 2 jobs, right? Yeah. And they basically had stylists that would come, and it was custom men's shirts, suits, trousers. They'd come to your office, measure you, and you would get custom fitting clothes for half the price of what you would get at Nordstrom. So beautiful model, And so I did a qualitative and a quantitative project for them. And so the qualitative was I just surveyed all of their customers, tens of thousands of customers. The quantitative was really interesting because we looked at people who bought just one time, and we looked at people that bought all the time, and we looked at the people that bought a few times a year, and why did they do that? So I basically did 30 qualitative interviews with them. And what we found was they had a quality problem. So the people bought from them once, they had a quality problem and they never bought again. And it turns out they switched manufacturers. This is when they were young. As you know, when you're a small company, you can't get the best manufacturers, you can't get the best co-packers, nobody wants to talk to you, those types of things. So there was an opportunity for them to go and win back all these other customers. And then so my advice is, if you're a direct-to-consumer brand, you are sitting on a gold mine. Talk to your customers, right? Find out what they love about your product, find out what they hate about your product. And they're like your best source of, product development sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that's a great tip, because I think people get sort of stuck in the mud with that, and like you said, not trying to reach everybody. Because a lot of people do that. Well, just throw it out to everybody who's in a 20-mile radius of where I am and hope for the best.
Right.
It's doesn't necessarily work that way. So what's another tip that you can give that people could go ahead right today if they're interested in looking to do like the paid ads for Facebook and Instagram? So we've talked about knowing who your target market is and not being too big. Is there anything else that they should be aware of?
Yes, sure. So you want to make sure that you're not putting the same people in the same audiences. So I had this yesterday with the chimichurri brand. They had the same people in their prospect audience, and they didn't exclude them. So if you're going after new people, make sure you're excluding your people that you have that have already visited your site that you have in a different campaign. So you don't want to have the same people in two campaigns. Facebook says, hey, I don't want you to bid against yourself. You've got overlap. I'm just not going to serve up to this person. So we'll miss Tanya altogether if I've got her in lots of different audiences. So we try to say, keep your audiences clean and truly focus on people who haven't visited your website and build out those audiences. At the very least, if you have enough web traffic, you can start that retargeting going. And those are going to be pretty profitable, right? Those are the people who went and looked at a product page and didn't purchase. So I think that that's a really good thing to do. And then, of course, building those prospecting audiences off of your best customers. Facebook has an easy way to do that if you're on Shopify.
Yeah, I think that's great. So I want to change gears just a little bit and talk about more of you as a business person. So you, obviously, we heard in your story that you were, sort of in the corporate world and decided to branch out onto your own. And in doing that, can you talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like? Maybe some obstacles that you were surprised about and how you overcame them in the early years, so to speak?
Yeah. I think I learned a lot, right? I had worked for big companies at Dell. I had massive HR teams, massive finance teams, and all of a sudden you're a startup and you're, a company of two and a woman founder with young kids, and you're just like, oh, I have to do all these things. So the thing that I found is we use the traction tools and the EOS system, the Entrepreneur's Operating System, to really focus on like get it, want it, capacity to do it. And it's like, focus on what you get, what you're good at, what you say, heck yeah, I want to do this, and make sure it's stuff that you have time for. If it's like networking at 8:00 at night and I have young kids and that's part of my job, that's not a good fit for me. So we always look at that. Those are some of the things that have really helped. And I really wish I had implemented this years ago, because I made a lot of mistakes in the first couple of years, and a lot of that was not having the right people in the right seats. We made some bad hiring decisions, and now we make all our hiring decisions based off our 4 core values and that get it, want it, capacity to do it. We want people that say, heck yeah, I get jazzed about this. Like, so if it's someone with Facebook ads and the position is all about sitting behind the computer and running the ads and being the wizard behind the curtain, we don't want somebody who wants to talk to people all day.
Right.
And similarly, we had someone who loved talking to people all day, but was stuck behind a computer role. So what you hate, someone else loves, and what someone else hates is what you love. And that was like a really good lesson for me, is find the people that get really excited about this and hire those people.
Yeah. And I think that's key because I agree with you. I remember for so long going, well, I can't afford to hire somebody. And it wasn't until I finally hired myself a business coach, and that she said, well, let's really pull the numbers and see how much it's costing you for you to do that job. And then I realized, oh, I'm losing way more money because I hated to
Exactly.
do it. So it would take me twice as long, or I would procrastinate, or, I wasn't able to focus all of my love and attention on those things that helped my business grow, or why I was excited in the first place.
Right. And our goal is to help 1,000 emerging brands by 2024. We've helped 126. So I've got, 870 to go to retirement. And the other lesson is we've grown slowly and organically through referrals. And then, we just hired a sales development rep. And I said, I want to get to those 1,000 customers faster. I want to help more people faster. And she loves to get on the phone and call people. And that to me is just the most, I'd rather be attacked by alligators than get on the phone and call people all day. So what someone else is really good at and you don't love, like you said, hire those people to do what they are good at, what you are not good at, and you focus your time on what you're good at.
Yeah. And I think that's a key thing for businesses. And I love that you have, that goal to, helping people, because I think, do you find that setting that goal and having that end goal helps you to stay motivated every day? Because there has to be, like in any business, there's those times where you're like, I really want to be done. Can I be retired now? Especially if you're at home with kids.
Right. Yeah. And helping setting those. So we'll do a 3-year plan, a 1-year plan, and then boil that down to quarterly rocks or quarterly goals. And it's great. I have 2 or 3 quarterly goals, and they're all driving to that 3-year plan. So, there's all these little pebbles that get in your way. And so if you just say, okay, yeah, but in the next 3 months, this is what we have to get done. And we figured that's about the right time. Anything longer than 3 months, you tend to lose sight of it. So we're really good about now setting those quarterly goals. And since we've implemented this system back in October, things are moving way more smoothly, and it's throughout the whole organization. And it really is helpful to have set your plan and then boil it down to a year, and then boil it down to by quarter.
Yeah. And I liked what you said too about, hiring for your core values when you had spoke about that. And there's a lot of companies that go, well, I'm not big enough to have that. So what was it that made you go, okay, you know what, it's really time that we set these, and what importance did you find in setting those values?
Yes. So again, I have to go back to the EOS system and the book Traction. And so we started this in October and Q4 of last year. It's only been, 3 quarters. And it really helped us solidify, like, hey, who do we want to help? And, we want to be super narrow and super thin, and we really just want to help brands in this space. So once we narrowed our focus, and then, I was encouraged. We have this great mentor that we work with quarterly, and he said, okay, tell me about your best employees, right? And so think about all the words you use to describe your best employees. And so we put all these words up on sticky notes all over the room. And that's how we boiled it down to, these are our best employees. This is what we care about. And so our core values are, always be learning, care about what you do, make it better, and keep an open mind. And so we found, like, oh, this person has never made anything better, or they just sort of punch a clock. We're like, nope, they're not going to fit here, right? Or this person proactively listens to podcasts and reads Reddit. And so that's one of our interview questions is, how do you stay up to date with Facebook or Amazon, depending on the position, right? And if they can't really answer how they stay up to date, well, they're not interested in always learning and getting better. So it really helps shape your interview questions.
Yeah. And that's the hardest thing. Like, I don't know. I personally have found that hiring was one of the hardest things. One, because as an entrepreneur, sometimes it's hard to let go, especially when you're the one who kind of was wearing all hats for a little bit, but also to find the right person, because sometimes you feel like you're stuck and you just, you hire when you're desperate and you need help and
Mhm.
you're just like, I just don't want to do this anymore.
It's true. And I was told early on, like, hire slow, fire fast. And I was like, no, 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 I have to hire fast. And wow, those mistakes are costly. Here in the US, if you lay someone off and they collect unemployment, your unemployment taxes can skyrocket. And so I'm paying the price for making one of those hire fast instead of hire slow decisions.
Yeah. And it's true. Like, you have to think about all of those kinds of, scenarios that pop into it. So it,
Hmm.
becomes a bigger deal sometimes.
Definitely. And more importantly, I didn't make the right hiring decisions in one area. And that, I think, has slowed our growth over 2 years. We were sort of flat year on year. And so we weren't able to help as many brands as we wanted to because we didn't have the right people in the right seats. So we're really focused on that. And it has made such a difference. So in hindsight, I was like, oh, why didn't I do this 2 years ago? So
Yeah.
that's my other piece of advice. Like, do it now, right? If you think it'll impact your business, do it now.
And I think that that's a great tip for people, is not only when you're, looking to find out, what your profits are and what your conversion rates are, but taking a look at your team, and do you have the right people, like you said, the right people in the right places, and having those conversations. Like, I know I always sit down, with my assistant and go, are you still liking what you do? Is there something that you would love to do? What excites you? Because sometimes it's just not necessarily letting that person go, but maybe moving them into a different role that better suits them within the company.
Exactly. That's what we did. We had what we call an A player, and she was in the wrong role. She was a terrific person. And we said, we got to move her to the right position. And we just did that. We reorganized our Amazon team. Everybody was sort of doing everything, right? Like, one person would do everything for this client. One person, would have these 5 clients. And then when we asked people, like, what's your favorite part of your job? What's your least favorite part of your job? Once we did that, we realized some people love the advertising part of Amazon, managing the advertising and the pay-per-click on Amazon to get you to show up on page 1. And other people love the organic listing, the back-end research and all the keywords and all the things that make your listing better and make more people convert organically from your page. So we actually reorganized our team into those sort of specialties, and everybody's happier.
Yeah. Which makes a huge difference, right? When you have staff that enjoy coming to work every day and want to.
Exactly.
So, through all of this, if someone is like, well, that's great, but still, it is not my thing that I love to do, I want to hire somebody else and see, what is the best way for them to find out if you guys would be a good fit together?
Sure. Probably the best thing to do is head over to our website, and don't judge us because we spend all our time on our clients. So we have one of the worst websites, but you can reach us through there. It's roiswift.com, or you can just send us an email to hello@roiswift.com. We'll happily do, if you're already running Facebook and Google ads, we'll happily do an audit of those. Same thing if you're already on Amazon and you've got a seller account, we'll do a complimentary audit, let you know if we can help you. Again, we only want to work with folks that we can help. We think that, you have, especially those businesses under 5 million, you have very few dollars, and we don't want you to waste any of them.
Yeah. And I think that that's great. And like I said, again, a breath of fresh air for, I know, a lot of people that are listening. So thinking back now over, your time in business, what is one of the most memorable pieces of advice that you received? And it could be business or personal, it doesn't matter. I'm putting you on the spot now.
No, that's great. Well, the one piece of advice that I received was the hire slow, fire fast. But we already talked about that. But I will tell you, it's not a piece of advice, but it's a model for who to be. So I had one of the best bosses at Dell. I had the same job, and 5 different bosses rotated in through there. At Dell, we moved every 18 months. And what I loved about this guy, his name was Carl, he didn't have anything to prove. So I came in, and what I loved about him is that he treated the janitor the same way as he treated Michael Dell. And I was just so impressed by him, and it was very breath of fresh air. So sort of the best piece of advice I ever got was just by look at this person, look at how he treats people. And really, if you can do the same with everybody, the best piece of advice that I have or would give is just like, treat everybody the same. Everybody is just as important, especially as we're thinking about what's going on in the world today. Lots of social injustice, lots of racial injustice. And this person, Carl Stolle, was the pillar of, and this was 20 years ago, how to be a good person. So at the end of the day, all you have left is your word and your reputation. So don't do anything that damages either one of those things.
And I think that's so true. And especially in this day and age, you just never know who is doing what on the side. Because I have seen it too in my clients who, I actually had one. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually had one who was a janitor, but on the side had a company, and now he's a multi-million-dollar company, but nobody knew, right? Like everybody was just like, oh, that's just Jim. I mean, he just cleans garbages, right? Meanwhile, Jim was building an empire that nobody was aware of. So you just never know.
Exactly. The Warren Buffett, drives around in an old beat up Honda. So that was really encouraging, because everything else I saw at Dell was step on people and climb over people. And this guy, Carl, really, I met him. He came to me. He was a vice president. He came to me. I said, I have these meetings. We had 8 different buildings at Dell at the time. And if you had a meeting till 2, you couldn't get to the other building by 2. So he said, I'll come to you. So he walks over, sits down, starts to tell me about his family and his wife, and, and very personal. And I was just so impressed by that every person was a person, and every person has value. And so that was probably, nobody gave me that piece of advice, but I was shown that by this amazing man, Carl.
Yeah. And it's something that you always remember. And I think, even, those that are listening, think of those people that you met that just, made you feel special for no reason than just you were human.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us. There were so many great pieces of advice, and we're going to make sure that we link to everywhere on our blog post that people can connect with you and learn more from you. And I've really enjoyed searching on your Facebook page. You have a lot of fantastic tips in there that I really want to start implementing as well. So I encourage people to head there.
Thank you again, Tanya. I appreciate it.
I hope that you got some great tips and you take them and start using them in your business, whether you're selling yourself or your brand or a product online. I think these are really great things that Caroline talked about and ideas that she had that really any business can take and start implementing right now. And if you're interested in learning to see if Caroline and her group can help your business get more ROI swiftly, which again is her company name, head to our website at foxtalksbusiness.ca, click on blogs at the top of the page. You'll see the post for this episode and all of the ways that you can connect with Caroline today and see how you can take your business to the next level. As always, I love hearing from you guys, what your ideas are, what your successes are, what your struggles are, and even ideas you have for guests. Caroline was actually one of those recommendations from you. So keep them coming in, whether that is a private message or a direct message or an email. I want to hear them all. And no matter what you're doing today, make sure that you find time to have fun. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?